Wait. The Hangout on Air is live. Woohoo! Good morning. Happy Friday. Welcome. And thank you all for joining us. We've been getting a more and more overwhelming response this week. Did I say that right? Overwhelming.
We have some new peeps. We should let them introduce themselves.
I think you're right, Beth. You want to go? I'm going to go from my left to my right. So, Alicia, you were with us last week, but since you're still fairly new to the Hangout scene here, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Here's the format. Just in 30 seconds or less, tell us who you are, what you do, and who you do it for.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I'm Alicia Fleury. I am the Zero University Manager, and I am responsible for all of the education in the U.S. Hopefully that was less than 30 seconds.
That was well under 30 seconds. You could buy a vowel later, and we'll let you do more.
That's my two-story elevator pitch.
Perfect. And Beth, you're next. Beth, you have to unmute, though, if you're going to say hi. So, all right, we'll come back to Beth in case she doesn't want to, or just let us know in the chat if you're feeling shy today. Dennis, you've been around forever. Dennis, I think you may be like one of my oldest online colleagues ever.
It was about 2 years, isn't it? 2.5 years, something like that. Time goes so fast.
It's got to be more than that, Dennis. Since like way back when we on LinkedIn when we connected there, and I was doing ratio analysis templates, and I remember.
Yeah, that was before we were on the Hangouts. That's probably about 6 months to 9 months before we were on the Hangouts.
Yeah, it seems like even longer than that. It seems like I've known you forever. I feel like I've known you my whole life, Dennis.
Must have had an accelerated life.
Right? Gabriel, welcome. Good morning. Tell us about who you are, what you do, and who you do it for.
Hey, I'm Gabriel Pena, and I own my own bookkeeping, payroll, and tax business. And I live in Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Awesome. Oh, doctor.
Yeah.
Gina, you're up next.
Me, or Gina.
You, Gina.
Gina Rodkey, Gina's Internet Advising. I am a small business accounting advisor. I'd love to do your books for you.
Beautiful. And Kathy ran away conveniently right on time. Oh, wait, she's back. Kathy, unmute and say hello.
Sorry about that. I had eggs boiling on the stove.
Really?
Time.
I'm Kathy Kaufman. I'm from Amherst, Ohio, and I'm brand new to SOB and decided to do this Google Hangout thing this morning, which I've never done before, and clicked the link and stumbled into this room. It's like I fell into like Alice's magic mirror or something. I thought I was just going to watch a webinar, so I know.
Kathy should get the newbie award.
That's right. And next we have Chris, who, if she's not too busy hyphenating her name, she can let us know who she is.
Haha, you're so funny.
Haha.
Haha. I'm Chris McLam. I currently reside in North Carolina, and I own my own business of tax and accounting and bookkeeping and payroll, and it's all for you tax. So, all for you. That's it.
All right. And Tina Kritzer, longtime hangouter, recently returned from outer space. What's going on?
Well, busy working up here in Northern California. We're enjoying a little bit of rain yesterday, which was nice. Hoping for some more. Just busy, busy, busy.
Excellent. And if I may be so bold as to introduce Yvette in this context, Yvette, hopefully you don't mind me introducing you as the queen of bookkeeping for the restaurant business. Tell us who you are.
My name is Yvette Shaw, and I'm owner of YMS Bookkeeping Services. And I live out I'm service out in Walnut Creek area in the Bay Area in San Francisco, and just doing lots of bookkeeping.
Okay, and you specialize in restaurants, but what else do you do? Or is that pretty much where you're focused?
No, actually, I'm now doing a lot of more into consulting and conversions and migrations.
Oh, fantastic.
Working with Zero, too.
Beautiful. So you're really kind of leading people into the future of accounting, which, of course, is the subject of today's Hangout.
Right.
All right. So for those of you kids watching at home, sorry, the panel is full. It looks like some people were trying to get in. So if somebody happens to leave, of course, you can try, and we'll like notify you, like, oh my God, and we'll tell you if there's room, if somebody drops off, and you can come in. So it's just kind of at this point, it's a first come first serve kind of thing. And please post your comments and questions down here on the page itself. If you click to watch the video and it enlarged and filled up your whole page, look at the top right of your screen. Depending on how the video is rendering, my right might be your left. So figure it out, right versus left. There's going to be a little up right pointing arrow at the top right of your screen, which when you click it will pop that window out into a separate window so that you can have the video in one box and you can have the actual Hangout page in another. So just a little housekeeping so that you can you know, kind of follow along and pay attention and take full advantage. Now, for those of us who are here on the live panel, please mute yourselves when not speaking, and feel free to unmute anytime and interrupt me absolutely if you have something to say, but it just helps cut back on some of the feedback that we get at times when our mics are unmuted. But don't get me wrong, I would love to hear from you all as much as possible. So, and I have a habit of going on and on and on. I'm like worse than the Energizer Bunny. So please understand I will not be offended if you interrupt me. I get it. And where else are we? So, all right, so those of you who are on the page, you can post your comments and questions on the page, and I encourage you to. And in fact, this is going to be very interactive today. I actually did a little planning and preparation for this one. Starting with a blog post I posted and shared on our ABO group earlier this week, which hopefully you've all read by now, which was on why I started my business. So for those of you, if you read the blog post, then post a comment on the page and let me know that you read it. In fact, I'll say, did you read it? And just post yes or no or +1 it and let me know that you've read it. And the reason is because the subject of today's Hangout is going to be you know, how to build the accounting or bookkeeping practice of the future. And the first thing I want to focus on, Kathy says she read it. Thank you, Kathy. The first thing I think that's important to focus on, if you're going to start a new accounting or bookkeeping practice, or any business for that matter, and or if you're trying to revamp and really say, you know what, I want to kind of start fresh, I want to start anew with my business and move into the future, you know, on a new kind of footing, then I think the same applies, which is that you have to be really focused on why you're doing what you're doing. I think that has to be so clear. And I'm going to qualify that because I think it's important to, by making the point, especially that making more money is not a good enough reason to start your own business. I don't believe that that will keep you driven or sustained for a long enough period of time to really see a lot of success when it comes to growing and building a business. That's my personal opinion. You can disagree, and if you do, feel free to comment or unmute and say something, but that's been my firm belief for a long time, and I learned that from somebody who years ago I had thought of as a mentor of mine. I can climb the corporate ladder at a big company and I can make more money. That's not a good enough reason to be on my own. I think the good reasons for being on our own were emphasized in the thread on ABO when I posted that blog post, most of which boiled down to essentially one core common concept, in my view, which is that we all want the freedom, right? We want the freedom to be able to do what we want, with whom we want. What I love to see was how many people commented that essentially their reason for wanting to start their own business was so that they could spend more time at home with family and loved ones. I love that reason for wanting to start your own business. That is an amazing reason. One gentleman in the thread mentioned that he had a family member who was ill, and that was the motivation. And to me, that was one of the most beautiful reasons I had read in that thread. You know, so there can be a lot of reasons, but I think what it really all boils down to is the freedom. But I think when you're setting up to build a new accounting or bookkeeping practice, it's really important to understand why. Why are you doing what you're doing? And it can't just be about making more money. So we're starting an accounting or bookkeeping practice. It's not easy. There's a lot of work to do. And you know, I've been writing more and more about this because, you know, sometimes I sit down and I think I have nothing to say, and then I start to write, and all of a sudden it's like the floodgates open. And as I'm doing that, more and more that's why I love to write, because I become more and more aware of what's sort of really going on inside of me and what I've been processing, because as you can guess, I read a lot, I talk to a lot of people, I get a lot of feedback. I love that aspect of what I do. I love that I get the opportunity to speak to so many of you and find out what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, and just getting all kinds of feedback about best practices. And there's so many applications out there, and how do we choose which ones, and for what purpose? right? And there's so much overlap between them. So it's going to become important to decide and define what that looks like, right? Because we can't use them all unless you're me. I use them all, but I use them all because to me they're toys that I play with to figure out. But even there, I'm in my own bookkeeping practice, I'm pulling in the reins. And one of the things that I'm going to cover in much greater depth, not even so much in today's Hangout, but in the course that today's Hangout is essentially based on, which is not out yet. I'm still writing it, and in fact this morning I substantially rewrote the outline as I was preparing for today. And it's course 21. And I just love that it's course number 21. I don't know why, I just feel like it's like a coming of age kind of number, right? We turn 21, we can start to drink. And by the way, this is not beer. It's lemon flavored Perrier, for those wondering. So, course 21, it's called Accounting and Bookkeeping Cloud Practice Management, How to Start and Grow Your Business in Today's World. And that's what a lot of today is based on. So, what's going to happen is we have to start, like I said, defining and deciding what's going to be used and for what purpose. Back of that, before we do that, we have to decide, and I was a firm believer for a long time. I've got a blog post on the Sleater blog. If you Google why do accountants or bookkeepers limit themselves, you'll likely find that post. And it was just about that. It was like, why do we limit ourselves by saying we need to specialize in 1 or 2 or 3 industries? And now I'm going to go out there and tell you that we have to limit ourselves. And by limiting ourselves, it's now my belief going into the future that we become much more unlimited, right? At the top of the hour, I can't remember if I said this before or after we went live. I think it was right after because I mentioned my friend Alicia here, and the fact that I'm exploring an app called Released, which handles property management and connects to Xero. And I plan on writing a course on how to do property management in the future, which has that as its core. And that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about and how we need to travel into the future and navigate our bookkeeping and accounting practices into the future in today's world, and especially more and more in the future world, which is that we need to, again, define and decide what industries we're going to specialize in. And then we need to go further and say that based on what we're deciding to specialize in, we have our core GL packages that we're going to use, our accounting products, and then we have to find the appropriate add-on applications that work with the core GL package. All right, so some people have dropped off, so for those of you trying to get in, jump in if you can. We have to decide how we're going to, we have to decide which apps we're going to use to serve the industries that we've chosen to serve. So what I want to do is I want to make this interactive. And in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and some of you guys are going to love this. Let me also check, because it looks like we're getting some comments in here. Looks like Jay was here and he left. Hi, Jay. Bye, Jay. Excuse me. See? It's not beer. Wait. I saw something. Okay, never mind. Billy Ann, I know you're out there, so if you can help me kind of moderate the comments and let me know if there's something, let me know if there's something that, sort of requires a response. Meanwhile, let me share my screen. Screen 1. And then for those of you on the live panel who want to unmute, this might be a good time actually to do so, because this way you can kind of provide the feedback. And I definitely want to hear from you guys on this. And then I want those of you who aren't on the live panel who are watching to get ready to start typing comments in the boxes, because I'm going to ask you for some feedback. So we're talking cloud practice management. We're talking the future of accounting and bookkeeping. And I think the first thing we have to do now, some of you have worked with Eric Greenspan on his Ignite sessions, right? So for starters, what I'd like you to do is if you've had an Ignite session with Eric, I'd like you to post that comment in the page. I want to see who out of our crowd here has done that, and especially because I want to start, I want to sort of piggyback on what Eric's been doing as we're talking about this, because what Eric is doing is he's working with you on the marketing side. He's working with you on how to grow your practice and how to attract more clients, right? Now, the question, of course, then becomes, once I'm attracting more clients, what do I do with them? How do I get them in? Even before I get them in, how do I handle that process? How do I get a client from the email in my inbox or the voicemail they left on my voicemail into my ecosystem? And that's what I really want to talk about here, is we're creating the ecosystem in which we're going to live. We're building that environment. We hear a lot of fancy terms thrown around like Cloudify and Appify, and Doug's famous one was Chunkify. And now what I want to do is I want to go past those phrases and terms. They're catchy, but I want to get down to business. I want to start looking at how do I do this? How do I make this happen? Right? What are the steps I need to take? That's always the thing. That used to be the thing that bugged me the most being in college, is I felt like we were getting all this theory and no practical application. So the first thing I want to do is I want to start building on that list of industries that we can look at so that we can decide which industries we're going to serve, because that's where I think we need to start. Even before we start the Ignite session with Eric, or if not during that session, and certainly if not by then, after that, when you have your Ignite session with me, when we go a step further and start saying, okay, now that we're getting the floodgates open with new clients coming in, how do we define the structure and the workflow and look at the apps that we're going to use? So if no sooner, at the latest point, by the time you get in my door, we're going to have to look at what industries you're going to serve. And I'm going to go out there and say that you don't want to try to specialize in more than 3 to start with. I think 3 is a good maximum. Ideally start with 1, master that, then add on the next one, master that, then add on the next one. And it'll make more sense as I go on, especially once I release Course 21, in terms of how that works and what that looks like. So let's start with some industries here. I'm going to start with some of mine just to get us started, but I want you guys chiming in and helping me add to the list. So I have construction, real estate, apparel, and let's just put creative and web design in one category.
Consultants.
Consultants.
Nonprofits.
Nonprofits.
Daycare.
All right, wait, hold on one second because I made a mistake here. Now, as you can see, I'm sharing the brain with you, and it's just because it's a mind mapping tool.
I love it when you work with the brain, Seth.
My mother tells me the same thing. All right,
10
so
seconds to watching you excel.
that I know.
Restaurants?
Restaurants, yeah.
Okay, so let's add on restaurants. What else we got? Give me more. I'm going to check the page too.
He says franchises.
Franchises. That came up recently in ABO. Last night I noticed somebody posted the question about working with franchisees. Why am I not able to spell? Franchises. I still can't spell.
E-commerce.
E-commerce, okay.
Gas station.
Oh, yeah.
Gas stations.
Retail.
Gymnastics,
What about
karate.
auto repair? Because that could be different than gas station, right? Auto repair.
Mm-hmm.
Property management.
All right, so what I want to do with property management is I want to create a category called real estate, right? Because then what I want to do is, and let's focus on this for a minute. I already had real estate, so let me just forget this thought. The brain has a way of forgetting thoughts.
How about retail shops?
Okay, hold that thought for a second. So
Okay.
in real estate, we have the broker and agent model. And then we have, of course, property management. And then within property management, of course, we have both commercial and residential. Real estate is one of my favorite areas.
I just picked up a escrow coordinator, which I guess is also a branch off from real estate.
That would be in the loan. That's a good one. So that would be really in the loan area, right?
Well, the way I'm understanding it, no. They just make sure that all the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, the inspections are scheduled. It's kind of a making sure everything within the practice that has to happen before closing happens.
Gotcha. Okay. So all right. So hold that thought for a second. So I've got mortgage and lending, and I'm doing that as an offshoot to real estate because it's obviously tied to real estate. But the lending industry can also be much broader than that, right? Because you might even, as small business bookkeeping and accounting professionals, I'm not sure how many banks we're going to get as clients, but you never know. And then there are private equity groups that I've worked with. I've had these kind of clients come in my door where they're private equity groups where investors come in, they pull their money together, and then somebody uses that money to invest essentially by using it to loan money out to people. So they're like private lending firms basically. So that goes, you know, broader than just real estate. Those loans can be done, they can be small business loans for any purpose. So So Tina, tell me one more time what that was called, escrow coordinator?
Correct.
All right, so I'm going to put that also as an offshoot to the real estate, escrow coordinator. And then I want to get back to Yvette's before I forget. And you know what I forgot to do is all of this really is supposed to come under the heading of industry.
Hey, Seth, what about in the property management? You broke it out in commercial and residential, but what about mixed-use properties? We own those.
What kind of property?
Well, they're mixed use. You know, we own old buildings, and so we've got like 6 apartments that are residential upstairs and then commercial space below. But it's one, you know, one LLC and one property.
Typically, what I've seen on that is that gets grouped under commercial. If there's a commercial property attached, it's considered commercial. That's how I've seen it. But it's a good point. It's an excellent point. So we could have. Let's just do it like this then. Let's say mixed use. Okay, and then what I can do, this is what I love about the brain, I've got commercial attached to it and residential.
Wow. Nice.
So, isn't that neat?
Cool.
And then let's link it up to the top right in property management. So it kind of, you know, mixes in with both of them. Okay, and then Yvette, you said retail, right?
Right.
Retail. All right, so I messed up, and I was supposed to put this all under the heading of industry. So actually, let me get rid of this. Let's forget that, and let's just rename this industries. The beautiful thing about the brain is it's very forgiving. So now what I can do, excuse me, is come up here.
And then, wow.
Instead of reworking every single link, right? Because, you know, and that's another important point. It's all about getting more efficient at how we do things and understanding when we're learning how to use these apps, and this is another example, the brain as a mind mapping tool, it's about learning how to use them in the most efficient way possible. Right?
And
So
Gabriel says, how do we have time to do all this learning?
Well, okay, so I'm glad you asked. Let me just check the wall here real quick. So Mariette, thank you for posting the Ignite link. So if you go to schoolofignite.com, you'll see where you can access the service that we offer. Eric will ignite you on marketing. I'll ignite you on this practice management kind of stuff. And then we have Jay Kittleman, whose specific focus is on Xero. So if you want help really mastering Xero and how to use that in your practice, then sign up with Jay for sure. Okay, and Karen says she did her first session with Eric on Wednesday, and she said it was awesome. So, all right, so far I'm not seeing any comments on the wall about industries, so we'll move on. Somebody's echoing really badly, by the way. So, all right, I think we're good. Okay, so I think we've got a good start here at the kind of industries that we. Nope, the echo's back. All right, so if everybody just wouldn't mind muting. Okay, perfect. So we've got a good start here at our list of industries, and what's going to happen now is, like I started to say, we have to now look at our. So we have industries. Now let's look at core accounting apps. Okay. So we have to start looking at what are our core accounting apps or GL packages. And I'm going to be very honest here. Even though my friend Alicia's here, and I love Alicia and Xero, I think that as accounting and bookkeeping professionals, we have to be prepared to know several of them. All right, Xero is definitely at the top of the list. QuickBooks Online is definitely at the top of the list. Then you should start looking at some others, because you're going to have clients who are either A, already using something else and they love it, or B, they're looking for something else. They're looking for the alternatives. Or there might be a particular industry that we find one particular core GL app caters to more so than maybe Xero or QBO. I don't know of anything specifically that would fit that mold, but you never know. And the point is, you want to be agile in this world. You want to be able to handle.
Sage.
Go ahead. And Sage, thank you. Yes, Sage.
What?
And Sage.
Seth, I saw your demo the other day at Sage 1.
Mm-hmm.
It was great. Loved it. I didn't know that Sage worked like that.
And Gina, thank you for reminding me, because now I want to invite you all to take another look at Sage 1, because they just rolled out their updates, And so now they filled in a lot of the blanks in terms of things that they were missing. It used to be you couldn't do bank recs in Sage. Now you can. So there's a lot of other stuff that Sage just added, just rolled out, like in the past week, which we're going to be covering in a course on School of Bookkeeping also. So thank you, Gina, for reminding me. So let's start listing some of these core GL packages. Xero, for sure. QuickBooks Online.
Wave.
Sage. Save. Wave, good one, Dennis.
How about Cashew also?
Cashew, for sure. Zoho
Fresh
Books. FreshBooks. What else we got? All right, and if we got nothing else, I think that's a good start. So, and I'm going to be very honest here. I think that at the very least, you absolutely have to know Xero and QuickBooks Online. No question. And I know there's some people who say, I love Xero, I hate QuickBooks Online, I only want to do Xero. And I get it, but I'm going to be very honest and say I think that's a mistake, because you're going to have clients coming in who are going to insist on QuickBooks Online. And vice versa. You're going to have other clients coming in who are going to insist on Xero. So I think at the top, those two are definitely critically important, that every one of us has to know both of those really well. That's a good start. So, and I'm going to be very honest here. Hi, Connie. I think you're playing back our Hangout, so if you wouldn't mind pausing that, and also if you can mute. No question. And I know there's some people who say, I love Xero. Okay, so...
Beth, can I jump in 1 second about the Xero and the QBO? Because this is my big pain point right now, and I'm actually going to XeroCon in a couple weeks.
Great.
And since I'm new to School of Bookkeeping, you might have already covered this, but have you done a session, I'll go back and look for it if you have, about why you should do two instead of just sticking with one? Like, you know, I know you said that there are some things that some are good, better than others, but there must be a reason for that, and I don't know enough about Xero yet to know what that is. So if you have something, I'll go out and look for it. If not, it would be a great topic.
That's going to be covered, I think, in depth in Course 21, which, again, is what today's session is all kind of based on.
Awesome.
But for now, let's just settle in on the fact that if you're going to focus on one, you can do that, and you can be the specialist like Jay Kimmelman is. Right? He's a Xero specialist. If you want to use Xero, if you want to learn about Xero, Jay's your guy. And he's made that choice, and I totally respect that. Although I know he also has a few clients on QuickBooks, but I think he's, you know, like it's his last few, and Jay is all Xero. So I think you have to make a choice there. If you want to, you can specialize, but understand that in doing so, you're possibly going to limit yourself and carve yourself away from certain clients who will come in insisting on another product. So it can, either way can be beneficial. My own point of view is, and this, I have to be honest, has to do with also, you know, where I kind of sit in this world, which is I want to learn all this stuff so I can teach it to you, so I can help you make a decision about what's best for you. So I wouldn't recommend learning all of these apps that we've just listed. I would definitely recommend, if you're going to do more than one, QuickBooks Online and Xero, and as we just mentioned, as Gina reminded me, Sage is definitely important to take a look at. I think Sage is going to start to become very important for us to take a look at. Sage as a company has been in the enterprise level market, and they've done very well there. They have some amazing enterprise level accounting packages. The small business market, they've had the desktop software. They bought Peachtree, which is now Sage 50, I think. And then they have Sage 100, which is if you outgrow 50, you go to 100. And then they have Sage 300, which is amazing. The desktop or server-based version is very expensive. But when I was at the last Leader Conference and I spoke with somebody from Sage, they started showing me they're now building a Sage 300 online package. It's out there already. Which is like $65 a month instead of many, many, many thousands of dollars, which is what it would cost for Sage 300 on the server level. So, and Sage 300, you're getting into, like, the way I stumbled on Sage 300 was I was looking at a solution for big commercial property management companies. So that's your ERP level system for a situation like that. Not a lot of us are going to look to serve those markets. I personally would like to at some point. So anyway, you can make that choice. You can either specialize in one core accounting package, or you can choose more than one.
Seth, is Sage 1 an online platform or not?
Yes, just go to sage1.com, and just like you saw in the demo that you saw that I recently did, it's that same exact product, but they've just added more features. And now, you know what? Thank you for bringing that up, Yvette, because I think that kind of underscores my point about the future, and the future being in the cloud. We just had a very lengthy discussion in a private chat among some of my School of Bookkeeping.com colleagues. You know, our colleagues who are handling the chats every day, and we had this long, almost somewhat heated chat discussion about the future of accounting and bookkeeping, and how I believe it's important to consider, you know, that the desktop world is going away. And me wanting to be at the forefront of all this stuff, I really want to move, and I want to guide others to move into the future with the idea in mind that here's how it's going to work. We've just identified your industries, right? And we've just identified your core accounting GL packages. And now what's going to have to happen is for each one of these industries, we're going to need to find the application that serves that industry and works with the core GL package that we want to use. And that is why I believe that we now have to specialize more so than ever before. Because I can only learn so many applications, even me. Even I'm limited in terms of the number of applications that I can learn and use. So in my own bookkeeping practice, what we've begun to do, and this is going to be like such an important point that I'm highlighting in Course 21 about how to move your practice into the future, is, in my belief, we have to have a document which outlines starting the industries that we're going to specialize in, and then within that, the core accounting packages that we want to use to serve those industries, and which add-on application, or several. And I'll give you an example of why I say several. We look at the construction industry, right? I noticed that Buildertrend seems to be a great app that can be used for the construction industry. And it happens to attach to both Xero and QuickBooks Online. So I said, even better, I can serve clients in both of those GL packages, and I can serve the construction industry in the cloud in a very robust application. So what did I do? I dropped a post in our ABO group, and I said, hey, has anybody used Buildertrend? And what do you like it? Do you hate it? What do you think about it? And the feedback I got consistently from everybody was they love the app. It's an amazing app for the construction industry, but it's a little expensive. So now my next goal is going to be to research a lower cost alternative if one exists. Earlier this week I spoke with a colleague of mine who is in the construction business. He's been a client of mine for like 100 years, and he had heard of Buildertrend, and he had the same objection, as that was a little pricey, but he also went on to say to me that based on the research he's done, they only seem to get more expensive from there. So it may be a lesson in going back to our clients and saying, and this is what I think we have to impress upon our clients, because now I know there's a question you're all asking, right? How do I convince my clients that this is the future? How do I get my clients to go this way with me? And really I think the question is, how do I lead them, right? How do I lead them into the future in a way that they're going to be willing and not going in kicking and screaming? And the biggest objection you're going to get is it's so expensive. I have to pay a monthly fee for the accounting app. I have to pay a monthly fee for the add-on application. It's going to end up costing me $100, $200 a month. And what I want to say is I want you to ask your clients to consider what it's costing them not to be in the cloud, right? The inefficiency, the fact that I have to use some remote login software to access my desktop version. Yes, I know we can also host QuickBooks in the cloud, the desktop version, but then we have other problems, and then that starts to get expensive, right? Because most of the hosting solutions work okay until I want to use certain add-on applications that work with the desktop editions, and now I have to go to a private hosting solution, which costs a lot more. So the hosting solutions will only take us so far if we want to stay with the desktop software that we're accustomed to using. So I really think it's important to get our clients to consider, and if need be, sketch it out. Bring up a spreadsheet and say, let's look at how much more efficiently we can get things done by working in the cloud. The fact that we have anytime, anywhere access, you know, and I would say, hey, you know what, client, you know what, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, imagine this. You can go on vacation, you can be halfway around the world, and as long as you have an internet connection, which I think is true in most places in the world by now, you can still access your data. You don't have to leave your business behind when you go on vacation. And yes, I know we want to focus and have our downtime, but how many business owners do we know that never take a vacation because they're so worried about leaving their business? And the beauty of the cloud, yes, sir.
Wouldn't you say that the best candidates for going to the cloud were people companies that don't write a lot of checks but use debit cards and credit cards, and also clients that rely heavily on their cell phone for doing things?
I would say stop writing checks already.
But I'm finding that the clients that are used to paper-based are less receptive to going online than clients that are already, using online banking quite heavily.
Okay, so
I think he has a point there. I do want to say that it depends on how open the client is to going online. I was just recently at another ProAdvisors QBO demo that she was giving, and there were two clients that decided to move on. One of them definitely could have used the QBO. Currently, she was on desktop, 2003, was thinking about should she move to the desktop, should she go to QBO. QBO for her would have worked really well, talking about how she worked at different locations, whatever, but she was not receptive to cloud at all. She decided she was going to upgrade her desktop because that's what she was used to. She would not make that move. On the other hand, there was someone there that was used to working in the cloud. That's how he envisioned his business was virtual. And he wanted to go to QBO, but all of the features he needed were not there, so he had to stay on desktop. So it has to do a lot with what is their view of what they want and their openness to working in the cloud.
So let's work backwards on that. Let's first address the last thing that you mentioned, which is not having all the features there. That it goes exactly to my point about why you have to have the industry appropriate add-on application. Because what's happening, what we've been doing for years is we've been trying to force what ultimately amounts to 85% of a solution into one GL product. Right? When instead what we can have now is we can have 100% of a solution because I have a core GL product that does only what it's supposed to do, be a GL product, and then I have the industry application that will fill in those blanks in terms of those features that aren't there. And I'll argue that it works better. Some people will still say, but I don't want all these applications. And my response, honestly, on some level is going to be too bad. You're going to find in the long run that you're much happier this way. Because let's face it, especially when I'm working in the cloud, what really is the big deal about having two applications? It's two tabs in my browser, right?
In his instance, though, there was no additional application that would really work. What he really wanted was to be able to go out and write checks and pull that billing information into his invoices. That's just not there in QBO.
Right, but then there's BillQuick Online, which very likely will have all the billing information he needs. And BillQuick Online syncs beautifully with QBO. And I know they're also heading in the direction of integrating with Xero. So I think then a lot of times it's going to first mean doing some more research and trying to find out if there really isn't a solution. I'd be hard-pressed to believe you'll find many cases left at this point already where there isn't, and that's certainly going to keep changing. Those gaps are going to be getting filled in more and more. Right?
Yeah, I believe there's an add-on for everything now. I mean, you can get a complete package. I'm seeing that more and more all the time now, and because I'm really focusing my practice to go get everybody on the cloud, on a cloud platform. And when I get a new client, I just tell them, this is the way that I do business. And I find something that works for them. And 9 times out of the 10, they are so much happier. I had a client tell me the other day they wish they would have met me the day they started their business.
Yep. When they see how much more efficiently they can run things and how comforting it is to know that they have anytime, anywhere access to that most important information in their lives, they are going to thank you no matter how much they resisted. And Alicia brings up a really good point in our chat here. She says, all this is part of the same conversation. Who are the right clients for you in your practice? How many industries, applications, client types can your business handle? And maybe it's time to consider that if the client is that resistant to moving into the future, into a world where they're going to be forced into it eventually, like it or not, let's face it, then maybe I don't want to serve those clients. Or if I do, now let's continue working backwards. So Gina's last point was the features aren't there. And my rebuttal to that is they probably are there. You just have to do some research and find the right application. I'm not going to disagree, though, that I'm sure you'll find some unique cases where there isn't. And that's fine. Then let them stay with a desktop-hosted solution for now until you find the right solution. Absolutely. The next issue was just their general resistance to the idea of going to the cloud. We have to get at the reason why, right? This is where communication is our most important skill, right? And a lot of times it's, the clients are like, I think they're almost embarrassed to admit because they're afraid it'll make them look sort of, antiquated in terms of their thinking. But we have to find out why. Are they afraid about security, right? Because there's an answer for that. Are they check writing? Right? I love the argument about check writing. It drives me crazy when people still write checks because you know what? I can use Bill.com, and and with Bill.com, they'll send out a check for me if I need them to, and it's 10 times more secure than me writing my own check. Bill.com uses the Check 21 security system. Every check is double verified before it's paid. Right? Every day, Bill.com uploads a list to the banks that they use, so that the banks have to confirm against that list that this check is authorized to be paid. You and I cannot afford that level of service from a bank. It's very expensive. But because Bill.com is aggregating money from so many people, they can afford to do it. So there's one answer on the checks. Now then you're going to get the argument, oh, but Bill.com is expensive. Is it? I don't know. As an accountant, I can set up my accounting portal and it's $30 a month. And for the efficiency that creates, and going back to the conversation where the client is on vacation, they can go in and pay their own bills. As the bookkeeper, I can process everything. I can get everything right up to the point where I can even approve the bills to be paid. And I can say, hey, client, here are the bills that, and you can use that approval process as a way of just notifying the client, here's what needs to get paid. We don't want to be writing checks on the client's behalf. We've had that conversation. There's a number of issues around why that's the case. Right? You can't do it without being a signer on the account. Even in Bill.com, if you try and tell them that you're authorized, they make you check something off that essentially confirms that you are a signer on their account. So if you do that and you're not, you're lying. And there's a number of security issues around that and liability issues. So you don't want to be a signer, but you can get everything right to the point where the client, all they have to do is check off in Bill.com and say, okay, let's pay these bills today, right? And so you can create that workflow. So I'd argue that the $30 a month is, again, it's worth it in the efficiency that you create.
That's hard to get through to the client. The time that they'll be saving is worth money.
Sometimes you just have to illustrate it on a spreadsheet and say what's the value of your time. If they look at their time on an hourly basis, or there are ways to get at the numbers and get at the hard numbers and actually show them. And I've done that with clients where I've shown them and then they started to see it. The other thing is, and now this gets us into the value pricing model conversation, which is that as the accounting professional who's providing the services, what I would suggest doing is build into your fees the cost of these apps. So if I'm inclined to charge, let's say, $250 a month for a certain level of bookkeeping service, and I know I'm going to want to use 3 or 4 of these apps because I need a core GL package, I need the industry-specific solution, and I need Bill.com, let's say, then between those 3, let's say I think it's going to cost me $150 a month. Boom, you know what? Let's pad it a little further. Let's just make that service $500 a month. And I know some of you are going to say, well, I'm pricing myself out of the market, and I'd ask, are you? Because I've seen over and over people posting in ABO about how they raised their rates and they start attracting more clients. Mm-hmm. Right? And I would also argue that the caliber of client, and by caliber I just mean how well they appreciate what you're doing for them, is also going to be better. In my experience, the more I raised my rates, the more I attracted clients who really seemed to appreciate the value of what I was doing for them.
Not only that, at that $500 a month, you're telling your clients you don't need to buy software. You don't need to buy high-end computer systems. I mean, they save money right off the bat. They can see that value, too. They're not upgrading every few years.
Right. Ask them to show you their IT bill for the last 6 months.
Right.
I bet you that they're spending at least $150 a month on IT, having somebody come in, tweak what's wrong, a network problem, whatever it is. All of that's gone. Right, so they're going to, right there alone, just asking them to bring out their IT bills is going to help you have that conversation and show them the value. That's a very good point, Kathy. Thank you.
Plus, if they hired an employee, they would have, employer taxes too. So there's a potential cost savings there.
Oh,
for sure.
And now the Bill.com app has a phone app, so now these people can be paying their checks from their phone out on a beach, instead of in the office printing it out on a printer. So.
Right, and I mean, you can go on and on about the value, and at the end of the day, I would even be bold enough to go to a client and say, hey, client, let me ask you this question. Let's say that it didn't save you any money. How much is it worth for you to have the convenience that will be offered? Isn't that worth paying something extra? Even if it didn't save you money, isn't it worth paying something extra to have the convenience and the peace of mind that goes with having these systems set up with anytime, anywhere access, that I don't ever have to worry. I only need an internet connection and I'm good. And then there's the argument, well, some parts of the country don't have a good internet connection. And maybe I'm spoiled because I live in a big city, but I've also traveled around the country, and I've yet to run into a situation where I couldn't get a good internet connection. So I have a hard time with that one, to be honest with you. I'm sure there are some very rural areas, where that may in fact be an issue, and if that's the case, then, and let's say you decided that what industry we didn't bring up, and this is an important one, I think, is the farming industry. Farming. I'm adding it to the list, even though you can't see it. So there may be, like I said, there are going to be some isolated cases where some of the arguments that we hear against going to the cloud are valid. I'm not saying it's absolute. I'm saying those arguments little by little, one by one, are going to go away. And I'm saying that if you want to be a bookkeeper and an accountant who's really moving into the future and you want to be at the forefront, because we're experiencing a major paradigm shift in this industry, because of all this technology, and it's happening faster and faster, and the technology is getting better and better. And now, right now, today, this moment that we're sitting having this conversation, I believe, is where our opportunity lies to get ahead, so we can ride that wave, and we can be the ones leading the clients into the future, and we're going to be the ones that build these huge practices, if that's what you want, that are based on this focus of where things are going in the future. If you want to stick with desktops, yes, sir.
Don't you think that a lot of the resistance, especially among accountants, is, geez, I've invested 15 years of my time, money, and energy in becoming a QuickBooks expert, and now it's being devalued, and I want to hang on to what I have. I don't want to have to spend, all this time learning something new.
That's like asking my doctor if he can go back and practice like medieval times medicine.
Right.
Right?
There are people that feel that way, that, I've invested all this time, I just want to keep doing what I'm doing.
Right, so pose it to them that way. Say, do you want your doctor to practice medieval-based medicine? Or do you want them to be offering, what do you want me to provide you as your accounting and bookkeeping consultant? Do you want me to provide you yesterday's solution, or do you want tomorrow's? Right?
Well, I doubt they're using the computers from 15 years ago. We have to update and upgrade and always be constantly learning. That's the SOB way, constantly learning.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Thank you, Gabriel. I love that. You know what, Gabriel? You get a free T-shirt or something for bringing up that plug. Remind me later. That was awesome. And Dennis, what did you say to me before we went live? You were the first person in the Hangout this morning. What was the first thing you said to me?
How's it going?
How are you on this Hangout right now? How are you accessing this very Hangout right now?
Okay, I am on a Chromebook, and I've discovered that I could probably run my practice off my Chromebook because all my apps are in the cloud, my tax, my Xero and QBO, my Workflow Max time and billing, my Zoho CRM, my Smartsheet project management, my Google Docs, and then I can print from my Chromebook using the Google Cloud Print. So I could potentially run my business off of my Chromebook, which isn't even a PC.
And can you pick it up and show us what this Chromebook looks like, or is the camera built into it?
The camera's, no, I can't. It looks like a regular portable.
Wow.
You wouldn't know it unless if you just looked at it, you probably wouldn't know it was a Chromebook because it looks just like a portable or a.
Regular laptop.
Does it look like an iPad?
They kind of look like MacBook Airs, don't they?
Yeah, they look like little laptops, right? Yeah. You know what? Google it.
I think one of the other hesitancies to moving to the cloud is honestly the ability to be able to touch and feel what you need to when you need to, and occasionally when you don't have that access and there's not an option to be offline, if you will, that's another fear, because there's a lot of businesses that just absolutely freak out when they can't do what they need to do when they need to do it.
I agree with that.
No, that's a solid point, and it comes up a lot. And I think again that's one of those things that's going to change in the future, because one of the reasons that is a valid concern still is, and I want to qualify before I say this, because I don't want Alicia to get mad at me, is that there are going to be downtimes, right? But, and this is what I'd say to the client who's posing that concern, I'd say, hey, client, you know what? The last time Xero went down, I don't even remember Xero going down. I do remember getting some notification recently that they were going to be doing a maintenance update, and if I remember correctly, it was going to be happening in the middle of the night when I was going to be fast asleep and didn't care. Alicia, am I wrong? Go ahead and unmute. I think it's a good point, and I'm glad since you're here that you can talk to us about this. How does Xero handle maintenance updates, and how do you minimize downtime on the Xero app?
Yeah, so we do make sure that we do it on off hours, but because we're a global company, sometimes that's tricky depending on where you are. But with the backup redundancies, if there's actually downtime during a maintenance release, then we've done something wrong.
Well, there you have it. So, you know, potentially because it's delivering data over an internet connection, there could be issues. It might not be the app itself. It could be your own internet connection. And what do I do if my own internet goes down and I can't get access to my accounting data? Alicia, what do you guys say to people when they've raised that concern? What do they do when their internet goes down? Just wait?
You know, I think unfortunately that is the case, but you know, logically speaking, you can get, like you said, internet almost anywhere. So if my internet goes down, I work from home, I go up to the coffee shop and do work. So you know, it just gives me, it's kind of like having a server downtime. It all, I think there's more redundancy, there's more opportunity to be online if you're on a cloud application. And I would never be mad. I would never be mad. I mean, I think at Xero, we all believe in all the points that you're making, and all of them are valid. And I think at a certain point, you just have to get used to the idea, like you said. You know, this is the future, and we just need to educate our clients on what that means to them, because they're going to have to get there eventually. Because all of these desktop applications, they're going to stop supporting them. They're just not going to do the enhancements they need to.
Yeah, and I think that day is coming. Maybe not for a few years still, but I think that day is going to come where, you know, let's face it, Intuit is going to say, hey, you know what? We're not going to support the desktop versions of our products anymore because it just doesn't make sense to, right?
One of the things that I tell my clients that do that argument, because some of them, you know, they have a retail business, they have to capture what they have to capture. They can't wander down the street to, you know, go find an internet cafe somewhere, and that's valid. But, you know, coming from the finance industry, when I was in banking, we had to have backup plans and redundancies. And so when we lost power, yeah, we'd have to close the banking door and nobody could come in. But when there were other things where the network was down and we weren't able to access the mainframe, as I date myself, you know, we had pads of paper and pens, and, you know, we tracked everything. And then when systems came up, guess what? We had input time.
Right. You know, when my internet went down, I used my MiFi, you know, hotspot to stay connected.
Bingo. That was going to be my next comment, is I have this little guy right here. I take it with me to clients. I even take it with me to Starbucks because I want to be on this when I'm dealing with my clients' financial data. I don't want to be on the Starbucks Wi-Fi. I mean, I'm sure it's pretty secure, but to me this is much more reliable because I know I'm the only one in that Starbucks who's accessing this particular connection. So I think this is a critically important tool. Speaking of building an accounting and bookkeeping practice for the future, I think we need to have this. I think as we grow and we're making the money that we can afford it and we hire our own bookkeepers, then we probably want to plan on providing one of these to each of our bookkeepers, right? A company-owned MiFi device.
I just have a camera case that I attached to my belt that has my MiFi in it, so I can just take it with me.
Mine goes in my back. My backpack has a case for like everything you can imagine, including the book. You know what? Gabriel, what was that motto of ours that you mentioned? Something about always learning, right?
Keep on learning.
So have a strong back, right?
I have one of those backpacks too.
This is how I make sure that I feel like I'm always in college. I never want to graduate, ever. I want to be in college for the rest of my life, learning.
I want to do a hangout of what's in each and every one of those pocket sets.
I don't know, Gina. I might have to charge for that.
That's a good idea.
Just a quick note, on what Tina was saying before about the paper stuff. I actually worked in a full-service accounting firm before I came to Xero, and we did a lot of retail businesses. And that was one of the things that we actually gave out to all of our new clients, was like an old school swipe pad so they could take credit cards if the internet connection went down or something. I mean, there's something to be said, and this is not the Xero way, but you know, sometimes things do happen, and having sort of a manual backup is not, it sometimes, you know, allays the fears that people have on certain pieces of security or whatever.
Right. And one thing that I recommend strongly, and I did a video on this, it was in the context of QBO actually, but the same thing can be done in Xero for sure, is in theory, not in theory, the whole idea is to stop talking theory and get down to business. And then I want to share my screen again before we finish today, because there's one other thing I need to do in my mind map for you all. And this part's probably going to make your head spin a little bit, but it's important. But first, you know, you can always download a GL report that just has every transaction, and you can do it incrementally so that you don't overburden the download process, and then just save incremental GL report updates so that you have every transaction in every account that's ever been posted, so that if you get stuck, and let's say on the same day that your main internet goes out, your MiFi device isn't working, and let's say Starbucks blew up that morning, then you can still access that data for what you need during that downtime. You know, look, I'm not a fool. I know that, you know, there are going to be times when, you know, your outage might be for a day or two, you know, and granted that's frustrating, but you know what? Even with desktop software, my network could go down, and it could take a day or two to fix that. So there's, you know, we can argue these points all day long. I just think that it's, you know, and that's where it boils down to the real question is, are you open and willing to move into the future with us, or are you just going to live in a state of inertia and resist every possible change that's coming your way, including the ones that are being thrown in your face that I think eventually we're going to be forced into anyway? So it's really just a question of, do I want to do it now and do it while I have an opportunity to do it at my own pace and in a way that really works for me, or do I want to do it when I'm forced into it and it becomes a very stressful experience? That, I think, is the difference, really, that we're faced here in terms of what the future looks like. Now let me share my screen real quick, because I want to, and this mind map is going to be a living, breathing, ongoing document, but I wanted to do this before we finish up. So we've got industries, we've got our core accounting GL packages that, like I said, if you want to specialize, then be my guest, specialize, and you will be the specialist in that one core product, whether it's Xero or QuickBooks Online or Sage, excuse me. But what I didn't get into was the app. So I have this other mind map already prepared, and little by little I'm going to be bringing it over into this so that we can choose from this. And I can make this public, by the way, if y'all want to kind of browse through it and access it, and I think that'll be useful. So here's a mind map that I created called Applications That Help Run a Business. This is how I do research, by the way. Right? And so I find things and I sort of catalog them, and I start thinking about, do I want to use this? Does it make sense? And then I'm going to show you the newest one that was just introduced to me this week by our very own Joanne Del Balso. I hope I pronounced that right. Just this week she brought one to our attention that I think is really worth looking at. So I'll spend a minute looking at that. So here, if I just go right to my applications area, right? And let me just go to project management, because that's kind of my favorite. But do you see how right here, and this is just scratching the surface, I have 5 p.m. Web, Active Collab, which is one that I actually use now in my business, Asana, which I've tried to like several times, and I just keep finding myself being out. Central Desktop, last time I checked, was very expensive, but extremely robust. Evernote is probably my other go-to. Every day, the first one thing I open is Evernote. Joanne's going to be proud of me saying that. There's Jetpack Workflow, which is put out by our very own Dave Cristello, who's in ABO, who, you know, it's a great app that was built specifically for accountants and bookkeepers. Podio, which is a Citrix product, right? Very robust application. There's BillQuick. I definitely put BillQuick under the heading of project management because it's very powerful. It does other things too. Redbooth is something I've seen. I haven't taken a close look at it, but it looks interesting. There's Smartsheet, of course, which we've done the course on, and we had them on our Hangout recently. It was one of our most popular Hangouts. Smartsheet is amazing, and I'll tell you right now, Smartsheet is going to be the application that I'm going to recommend for tracking your workflow internally, if not client-facing as well. And everybody smile. Gabriel just took a picture. There's Teamwork.com. I hear that get mentioned quite a bit. Trello, of course, we've been talking about a lot lately. I've done a number of videos on it recently. And then, of course, Zoho projects. And Zoho, by the way, should not be ignored. They have an amazing suite of applications. In fact, internally, for project management, and where, frankly, we can talk smack about our clients if we want to, I use Zoho Connect, which is kind of like a Yammer. It's like our own little internal Facebook where we can discuss things, but it also turns out to be a great place where I'm also using it because it has a wiki built in, and that's where I'm starting to outline the industries that I want nerd enterprises to specialize in, and then doing that research and putting together that information about what apps we're using. So these are the ones, and now the newest one that I have to add to this is called 17 Hats. And so let me bring up that I had.
Is this Joanne's 17 Hats?
Yes, yeah. It is. So it's 17hats.com. You see it on your screen right now. You know, just looking at the interface, it gets me excited because I'm kind of like, I can see from the layout that this looks like something that can really help you organize and create a dashboard to aggregate all the things you need to be concerned with throughout the day. Now, they even have a bookkeeping application. I'm not sure I'm going to recommend that. And Jay Kimmelman, who looked at this already a little bit, I guess, yesterday, said that it lacks integration with any accounting software, which is a problem. But in terms of the fact that, I see phone log right up there on their picture. And, my system for tracking my phone logs is great. I use Evernote for it. But I'm still intrigued to see if this is going to be something that can improve upon it. And that's the point I kind of want to end today with. Because like I said at the top of the hour, we're going to be looking at so many applications, and a lot of them serve a lot of the same purposes. Some of them serve overlapping purposes, and the bottom line is this. When I'm considering an application and whether or not I'm going to use it, I have to ask myself, I think, two really important questions. One, does it fill a void that I haven't filled yet, right? Or two, because if not, then it's going to need to replace something, and I have to ask, what's it going to replace and how? And in a very rare case, the third option is it will serve as a good complement, but you have to tread so carefully there because what you don't want to do is what I tend to do to myself, but I do it for other reasons, but where you start kind of spreading yourself thin. And then if you find yourself getting up in the morning and going, wait a minute, where are my to-do lists? Are they in Wunderlist? Are they in Active Collab? Did I put them in Trello? Where was that? I can't find it. Now your whole process becomes counterproductive instead of improving on it. So that's why I go back to one of the most important highlights that I'm going to bring up right at the beginning of Course 21 is you have to have a document. I recommend doing it in Google Apps so that you can have it shared. And that document is going to outline every application that your company uses and what purpose it's used for. And you're going to divide it up between what's client-facing and what's internal, because you need both, right? I need my to-do items that I don't want my clients to necessarily see, or because I don't want to raise questions that I don't need to spend time answering for them, and then I need the one that's client-facing. Smartsheet I use client-facing because it's so cool and so powerful, and the clients love it. They find it easy to get in. They find it easy to understand what to do, and they seem to love the idea that they get updated every time we mark off that we've reconciled this month's bank statements. The clients love that they get notified about that because it lets them see that we're actually doing the work. And that is the note I want to end up on. I'm going to shut up and leave it open for you guys. Any parting words, comments, thoughts, suggestions, ideas?
Awesome conversation as usual.
Yes.
Thank you, Tina. I'll send you a check for that one.
No, send me a bill quick payment.
Okay. I'll pay you. I'll pay you through bill.com. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Don't forget to send us the link on the brain.
Okay, remind me. Have your people remind my people. You know what? I'll put it in Wunderlist.
I just downloaded the brain.
It's a great product. It's a great product, but again, be careful because if you're like me, you'll end up spending all day on this and you won't get anything else done.
Well, that's my question. How do you find the time to go through all these apps, to read books, and to research all these things?
You know what? We'll go on for another minute because I think that's a great question and I think it's an important one. What I do very literally, Gabriel, is I carve out the time on my calendar as though it were an appointment that I had with a client. That's the only way. So what I do... Yeah, we talked about this not that long ago, but I literally put it on my calendar and say, this is going to be my learning and research time. And in fact, because it's so much a part of what I do, I actually have a 2-hour block every day set aside for that. And you know what else it does? And I sort of realized this by accident after I started doing it is it takes a lot of stress out, because now when I run into a situation where I'm stuck on how to use a product to do a specific thing, I no longer stress about it, because you know what? Okay, so today, when I get to that 2-hour block of time, which is at the end of my day, I can just do it then. I have the time set aside, so I don't have to stress out about it. So it really does relieve stress, literally, when you do that, when you block out those times on your calendar. So everything I ever do is going to be on my calendar at the end of the day, and I think it needs to be.
I want an app for available apps, and all I do is plug in what I want, and the perfect app comes out.
You know what? Maybe I'll build that for you, Gina. But for now, I use the brain for that. That's part of what I'm doing with the brain, like you just saw, is that's where I'm cataloging all the apps. But then, like I said, that's, at least in terms of your own business practice, that's where you do need to have that document. You know, where you do define, these are the apps we use.
Absolutely, you do, if for nothing else, for passwords and usernames.
Yep.
I was doing what you're doing, Seth, but I was doing it in Evernote using notebook stacks.
Which is great.
I like do things better because it just pops up like that. That's very cool.
There have been several times where I've tried to divest processes from Evernote into one of these other applications only to bring it back into Evernote. Because Evernote, especially with its tagging, works so well. When I want to find something and it's in Evernote, it never takes me more than 30 seconds to find it, no matter how long it's been. And I think I'm approaching 10,000 notes in my Evernote notebook. Now, it took me a while, but I'm finally getting the hang of what Evernote for Business is really all about. And so I'm starting to move my notes and notebooks from my personal notebooks into the business notebooks. And I'll give you a quick high-level point about that, and then we can cover that in another Hangout in more depth if people want. But the idea behind the way Evernote for Business works is, in a sense, you create a notebook, and people in your organization can subscribe to that notebook. And then if they want, they can unsubscribe. And what that does is it lets the information live in the cloud. And then on my desktop Evernote app, I only need to have the information I really need access to right now. So because once you create a notebook, you can't delete it from the desktop app in Evernote for Business. You have to be an admin. You have to go into the server-side settings, on your browser, and go in there to actually delete a notebook. Otherwise, you can just join or unjoin the notebook. So now what you do is you literally, with Evernote for Business, you're creating a library for your business with reference information, right? So when an employee comes in, this is also going to be very well outlined in Course 21, is you're going to have your employees come in, and you are going to be out of the process. You're going to say, hey, employee, join these Evernote notebooks, and this is our training manual, and watch these videos, and sign up for, here's a shameless plug, sign up for schoolofbookkeeping.com, because that's where you're going to learn how to use all these applications that we've chosen to use in our business. And I'm going to end on that note, so sign up for schoolofbookkeeping.com. And go to schoolofignite.com if you want more of what you've seen here today, because that's where Eric and I can work one-on-one with you guys and really help you dig deep into these processes. Me with these processes, Eric more so with the marketing and how to get those clients flooding in so that you'll need me to help you organize yourself around all these apps in your workflows. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Seth.
Bye, Seth.
See you later.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.